being full-time and then leading the children's ministry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there you go. Next, I just wanted to share with you an OJT or witnessing story. So recently, I've had a few people ask me the question whether a child can really come to faith through Hope for Kids. And I thought, well, that's an interesting question to ask, but I think it's a good question to ask. Well, my witnessing story deals with just that. In our last church, Calvary Chapel, McMinnville, we implemented another semester of Hope for Kids, and our children's leader had said that some of the newer students that were attending the Wednesday night class, she didn't think that they had a relationship with Jesus. So she said, let's do Hope for Kids because the materials are so good at presenting the gospel. And I couldn't argue with that. I thought, yeah, let's do it. So we had in our class 4 of the most rambunctious boys ever. Every time we tried to teach something, one of them would shout out, Lamborghini. We're like, what did that have to do with the lesson? They just were busy. But Hope for Kids is good for that. Okay, so it led us to question whether, were they listening? Were they paying attention to what we had to say? But I did notice something amazing during the sin section of Hope for Kids. The boys started asking deep questions. I'm like, I think they are paying attention. We were totally amazed. And when it came to the God section, I thought, well, I don't know if they're going to participate in this because we get real silly. We put on those big gloves that say love and just. We do the hand motions with those. I just didn't know if the boys would be willing to do that because they're on the older end of the range, you know. Those boys couldn't wait to get those gloves on. They're like, my turn. I want to do the hand motions. And they did them correctly. So that was awesome. One of the other cool things about these boys is 2 of the boys were brought by their grandmother. She just recently sent me a picture of her being baptized at our church, so that was really cool. But they always brought friends to class. So these boys, they just have built in them that invitational spirit. And one of the boys that they had brought, he was in my group for team time. So let me just say, when it came time to respond to the gospel, he was serious. He was intent on making a decision to have a relationship with Jesus. We talked about what his own family believed and compared that to the decision that he was making. No one can convince me at this point that a child can't make a genuine, uncoerced decision to follow Jesus, especially if they're using Hope for Kids. So that was awesome. He accepted Christ into his life that evening. When it comes to a couple of churches that I'm excited about, I wanted to share about our new home church, Calvary Chapel, Asheville. And I'm excited about this church because since the first day we stepped in the door, they've loved on us. They've supported us in prayer. The pastor has had us speak in front of the church about EE and about our trip to Indonesia. And then recently I asked if I can put out my newsletter, and he said yes. And then he stood up and held it up in front of the church, and you should support them, even financially. And I just thought, this is amazing. So on Thursday, I'm going to be meeting with the pastor because he wants EE in his church. I'm so excited that God would put us into a church that is just so accepting of us and of our ministry and wants to implement it. So that's the first church I wanted to tell you about. The second one is actually a ministry. It's the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club in Houston, Texas. A lady named Annie Patty had traveled by bus from Texas to Oklahoma to get trained, Arkansas, to get trained in Hope for Kids. We had a launch there, and so she really wanted to come, so she got on a bus and traveled there. She was so excited about implementing that we had multiple phone conversations so that she would make sure she got all the details correct. And this summer, they implemented 3 summer programs at the Boys and Girls Club. She wrote me an email, and this is what it said. Here is the summary of the 3 summer programs that we just completed. 90 children were enrolled in 3 programs. Gospel presented to all 90, plus occasional visitors. 2 of the programs had attrition due to natural tendency for families to go on vacation the weeks prior to school starting. As such, not all 90 attended the final units at which the kids completed the response forms. However, it seemed that most all were consistently praying the salvation prayer, which we prayed as a part of every unit session. Based on the forms in the activity passport booklets, there were 67 decisions documented, with 55 indicated as first time. And I thought, that is so cool. How neat that someone who just wants to implement, just wants to share with kids, can have that kind of result. And she had shared with me previously that these kids, they're troubled, a lot of them are. And so the fact that she was able to bring hope to them through Hope for Kids, that's just so exciting for me. And I just think that as we continue to implement this throughout the U.S., I think a lot of kids can find hope through Hope for Kids. All right. So if any of you out there have not experienced Hope for Kids, please come talk to me. I want to get you in a semester somewhere so that you can see how exciting it is and how fun it is. And often it can be a footstep into a church because the churches want to know what they should do with their kids. Okay, so next I wanted to share some impactful verses with you from a couple different places in the Bible. And the first one is from Proverbs. God has used these verses in my life since I struggled with anxiety attacks when I went to college. And it was really cool when I got involved in Hope for Kids because it turned out the theme verse in Hope for Kids was my life verse from college, and that's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So of course I have to do it the Hope for Kids way. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So trust is really what I want to talk about. It's one of the easiest things to say, yet it's one of the hardest things to do. For me, it's like walking out on a glass bridge. So just imagine with me, you're standing on the edge of a precipice. Behind you is darkness and danger. You can't go back. You must move forward. What lies before you is a great chasm. On the other side is light and hope and joy. You so desperately want to get to the other side, but you must cross the chasm to get there. The only way across is a glass bridge. There's a figure there on the other side beckoning you forward. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. You're filled with fear because of what you can see below you. The bridge is solid. It's been there for years. You know of others who have crossed it, but you just can't shake that "what if I fall" feeling. Lean not on your own understanding. So you decide, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a step. You step with the right foot. You set it gently on the glass. You look intently for the spidery cracks, a telltale sign of impending doom. None appear, so you take another step. Now the bridge is bearing your full weight. Your knees begin to shake. Next, you hear a still, small voice calling your name. The voice fills you with warmth. The voice tells you to look at him for strength. Looking back will get you nowhere, and looking down will fill you with fear. In all your ways, acknowledge him. While looking towards the beckoning figure, you notice something new. While looking down, you only saw scary darkness. While looking forward, you now notice that the sun reflects a warm glow of light off of the glass bridge. You can't see the darkness below. As you look forward, there's nothing to fear, and he will make your path straight. So once I learned to stop looking at my circumstances and only look to Jesus, then I began to experience the victory in Jesus that God promises day in and day out. By no means have I become complete in this, No one has, but I can say that I'm freed from those anxiety attacks. So the next song that I wanted to sing with you is Trust in You. Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. Truth is, you know what tomorrow brings. There's not a day ahead you have not seen. So in all things be my life and breath. I want what you want, Lord, and nothing less. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. You are my strength and comfort. You are my steady hand. You are my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Your ways are always higher. Your plans are always good. There's not a place where I'll go you've not already stood. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. So there's one more section I wanted to share with you. Squeeze it in real quick. And then there's actually one more song. So the next verses that God used to minister to me is in Esther chapter 4. And I just wanted to read the entire chapter because it's not that long. The main part that I wanted to share out of that is for such a time as this. But the whole chapter is really good when you take it in context. And you know, this is exactly why I brought my Bible, because right now this Bible on here is in French. But I think I'll read it in English. So, see, I've got my real Bible. Okay, Esther chapter 4. When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city, crying with a loud and bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people lay in burlap and ashes. When Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothing to him to replace the burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed as her attendant. She ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was in mourning. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the decree issued in Susa that called for the death of all the Jews. He asked Hathach to show it to Esther and explain the situation to her. He also asked Hathach to direct her to go to the king to beg for mercy and to plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this? Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same, and then, though it is against the law, I will go. I will go in and see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. I just think Esther is awesome. Through these verses, the Lord has spoken to me to trust him in the calling, to be willing to do what others may not be willing to do, to risk everything to be obedient to the Lord. Esther didn't ask to be chosen for a harem, but she found herself chosen to be queen. Esther didn't abuse her authority, but she was asked to use it to save her people. I have been told many times, Monique, you need to bloom where you're planted. And I think Esther did that. I think she's a great example of blooming where she was planted. Before I joined EE full-time, I went back to school to finish my degree in education online. And during the coursework I taught in a small Christian school, my favorite subjects, Bible and math. At the completion of the term, I was offered a position at the school, and I thought, okay, wow, I have a choice. I can choose to work with EE, or I can serve these sweet kids here in McMinnville. And during my decision time, I went with Vance to one of his business trips in St. Louis, and I wanted to desperately hear from the Lord on what I should do. So I went on a walk in the park around the Gateway Arch. There's a park there. You can just take laps around that. And I walked, around and around I went, praying and listening, and I heard nothing. So I finally gave up, and I thought, I just can't walk anymore. So I went back to the hotel, a little bit frustrated that God didn't answer me. And I actually said, God, you didn't tell me what to do. And I kid you not, the answer I got back was, that's because I already told you what I wanted you to do. That was to join EE. He had already told me to do that, but I thought I had a choice. So if I can say that I have a life verse, I would say that this next song that I want to do for you in closing is my life song. But this time you guys have to sing really loud. Even if you're on YouTube, you have to sing really loud. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrow for letting me share. Randall?
I had a great suspicion that was going to be really good, and I was right. Thank you, Monique. Monique told me yesterday that she had figured out how to lead a devotion based on who she is, not on who she's not. And she started to tell me how she was going to do that. I'm like, no, don't tell me. I want to be surprised. And that was really good. Thank you for a good model for us to lead devotions based on who we are. And that could benefit all of us. So before we go to prayer, I wanted to give you a commercial for upcoming events. Because we've completed our summer of devotions, hearing from a variety of our staff, and we're going to continue to hear from a variety of our staff around the country, but we're going to do it based on a theme, and the theme is the church. We love her, and we're called to assist her. We at EE have a particular charge to come alongside the local church, and so I want us to focus in on the local church. So next week we're going to begin a series that will take us all the way to February based on the church and what the New Testament says about the church. So next week we're going to look at the church defined, and then we'll look at the church commissioned. We'll look at the church birthed, the church scattered. We'll look at some specific churches, the Antioch church, the Thessalonian church, the Corinthian church, the Ephesian church. We'll look at keys to pastoring a church that will hopefully give us insight as we come alongside pastors. What are they dealing with as they lead a church that we need to be sensitive to as we seek to assist them? We'll look at living stones, the family of God, the bride of Christ, the beloved lady, as she's called in John's epistles. We'll look at the churches in Revelation, and then finally, we'll look at the church in glory, what will be the end state for the church. So that's what we have to look forward to in the weeks ahead as we continue our devotional time together. And as we go to prayer, I do want to call your attention to the last prayer on the sheet, which is a prayer for comfort and peace for Ashley Sturgis in the loss of her mother. Ashley is one of our Fiji interns from last year. She's actually engaged to one of the other interns from last year, who's a board member of EE Australia. And as they get wed sometime in the next year, they're going to be joining our staff somewhere between the U.S. and Australia, or both, or somewhere in between. We're working that out. But pray for Ashley. She was actually in Indonesia. She was a part of the young group that we focused on at the Congress, and then she went on to Australia, and from there she learned her mother was very ill and raced home to see her right before she died. So pray for Ashley and her family, if you would. And are there any other requests that our group at large should be aware of as we pray today? Not hearing of any, we'll dismiss our field staff, and we'll remind them of our meeting at 3 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, when we'll talk about the Congress and lay out some plans for the rest of the year for our staff times together. So God bless you as you go and pray. Thank you.